Good day, everyone. We are the Group 2, and our topic is all about ancient Middle Ages. So, for the introduction, the Middle Ages was the period in European history from the collapse of Roman civilization in the 5th century CE to the period of the Renaissance, variously interpreted as the beginning in the 13th, 14th, or 15th century, depending on the region of Europe and other factors. The phrase Middle Ages tells us more about the Renaissance that followed it and thus about the era itself. Starting around the 14th century, European thinkers, writers, and artists began to look back and celebrate the art and culture of ancient Greece and Rome. Accordingly, they dismissed the period after the fall of Rome as the Middle or even Dark Age, in which no scientific accomplishment had been made, no great art produced, and no great leaders born. The people of the Middle Ages had squandered the advancement of their procedures. This argument went and admired themselves instead in what 18th century English historian Edward Gibbon called barbarism and religion. The ancient Middle East gave rise to some of the greatest empires in human history. The Middle Ages were a period of great change, bringing Europe from the Classical Age to the Renaissance. As a traditional period, there is not a single clear breaking point with the ancient. Christianity is important to the Middle Ages and polytheistic worship is important to the ancient period, but the change was more evolutionary than revolutionary. Ancient history delves deep into the origins, cultures, and traditions that still exist today, even the way we think that his origin in distant antiquity. Modern Western philosophy, morality, and ethics are all deeply rooted in ancient Greek, Roman, and medieval Christian philosophies.
The Middle Ages was the period in European history from the collapse of the Roman civilization in the 5th century CE to the period of the Renaissance, variously interpreted as the beginning in the 13th, 14th, or 15th century, depending on the region of Europe and the other factors. Sculptures illuminated manuscripts, stained glass, metalworks, mosaics, architecture. Medieval arts reflected of the growth popularity of Christianity. First, medieval artists didn't make art in the round or three-dimensional. Second, the art was flat. This was because they were trying not to make false idols of their work. The visual arts prospered during Middle Ages, which created its own aesthetic values. The wealthiest and most influential member of society commissioned cathedrals, churches, sculpture, painting, textiles, manuscripts, jewelry, and ritual items from artists. Many of these commissions were religious in nature, but medieval artists also produced secular art. Few names of artists survive, and fewer documents record their businesses dealings, but they left behind an impressive legacy of art and culture.
Sculptures, illuminated manuscripts, stained glass, metalwork, mosaics, architecture. Medieval art reflected the growing popularity of Christianity. Medieval artists didn't make art in the round or three-dimensional. The art was flat. This was because they were trying not to make false idols of their work. Early Christian art began using religious iconography. What role does iconography play in early Christian art? They provide an important record of some aspects of the development of Christian subject matter. The earliest Christian iconography tended to be symbolic. A simple rendering of a fish was sufficient to allude to Christ. Bread and wine invoke the Eucharist. Icon, object, character, figure, or color used to represent abstract ideas or concepts.
Byzantine mosaics is over 10,000 craftsmen were employed to decorate a cathedral. Mosaics were one of the most popular forms of art in the Byzantine Empire. They were extensively used to depict religious subjects on the interior of churches within the empire and remained a popular form of expression from 60th century to the end of the empire in the 50th century. Romanesque is refers to the architecture which retain many basic features of Roman architectural styles, most notably round-headed arches, barrel vaults, apses, and leaf decoration. Combining features of Roman, Byzantine buildings and other local traditions, Romanesque architecture exhibits massive quality, thick walls, round arches, sturdy piers, groin vaults, large towers, and symmetrical planes. The art of the period was characterized by a vigorous style in both painting and sculpture. Barrel vaulting simple semicircular roof values. A barrel vault is a continuous arch shape that may be approximate a semi-cylinder in form, resembling the roof of a tunnel or may be pointed at its apex. It is typically formed by a series of arches or vaults placed side by side by a continuous shell. Apse, a semicircular recess covered with a hemispherical vault or semi-dome, also known as an exedra. In architecture, a semicircular or polygonal termination to the choir, chancel, or aisle of a circular ecclesiastical building, first used in pre-Christian Roman architecture. The apse often function as an enlarged niche to hold the statue of deity in the temple. Gothic art, a style that developed out of the northern France and spread to the rest of the Europe. Gothic art was a style of medieval art that developed in northern France out of Romanesque art in the 12th century. Led by the concrete development of Gothic architecture, it spread to all of the Western Europe, and much of northern, southern, and central Europe never quit effacing more classical styles in Italy.
It's not always true that the Dark Ages were all that dark. In fact, they were frequently illuminated throughout history. Many people forget the triumphs but recall the disasters. Due to the numerous disasters, there were more horrific deaths, sicknesses, conflicts, and punishments than most people have ever witnessed. However, a fresh beginning sprang from those atrocities, demonstrating that these events were crucial for Europe's rebirth. The church and the feudal system were all that the populace had, because much of contemporary culture might have changed if they hadn't. As the populace became more reliant on the church, social classes and ranks started to emerge. These positions of authority over the peasants held by knights, lords, and monarchs became as significant as wealth and territory.